Welcome to Flip Lessons with Mr. Keelan. This lesson's topic is the presidential nomination process. Welcome to our second lesson on the executive branch. This time we're going to be looking at the nomination process for one to become POTUS. Just saying that you want to run for president doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be one of the choices in the general election for people when it comes to the ballots. There is a very exhaustive process that we have in the United States in order to filter out many different candidates to get our last two for the two major political parties. So what I want you to do by the end of this lesson, one, tell me about the role that those political parties play in the presidential nomination process, in particular with the primary election system. Presidential parties play a big role in this. Secondly, I'd like for you to be able, in your own words, be able to explain some of the key concepts like primary elections, the convention, and campaigns. So, now that we've gotten through lesson one and you are qualified to run for president, what do you have to do next? You get to fight your friends. That's always fun. In step two, primary elections are elections between people who are normally political allies, between people who agree on many different things. I think most of you know the United States has two major political parties at this time, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I'm not going to get into all the specific differences between Democrats and Republicans. We're going to have a very extensive unit on that to come. However, that being said, it's obvious that each party has its own vision for what America needs, what it thinks that America should be. Republicans and Democrats have much different point of views on what we should be doing militarily, economically, in terms of our foreign policy and diplomacy, in terms of our social programs, education. Each has its own vision for America. Now, since generally we have a choice between these two, yes, I know there are independent parties, third parties. They have their own process, but since the two major political parties are what shapes our elections right now, we're going to focus on them. In order for each party and the members of each party, Republicans, Democrats, to be able to choose the candidate they feel best represents their vision for their party, their vision for America, they have an election of members of that party. That's what primary and caucus elections are. It's Republicans versus Republicans, Democrats versus Democrats. These elections are held state by state by state. And within these elections, members of each party get to vote within their state on who they feel should be the nominee. Most elections are primary elections. That's, if I'm a Republican, I get to go on that day and vote for which Republican I think should be the presidential nominee. I'm a Democrat, vice versa. A couple states like Iowa have caucuses. That's where members of that political party, Democrats or Republicans, have a series of votes where there's discussion and debate. It's more of a democratic process of not just voting, but discussion. But in the end, the result is the same. That state puts up a certain number of delegates or votes for one of the candidates based on the primary voting. Each party has a set number of delegates that it needs to get, that a candidate needs to get in order to become the official nominee of that political party. So you're going to see, candidates typically will try to campaign a lot in the states that have early primaries, like New Hampshire, trying to get that first victory, build up momentum. Also, you're going to see people really work hard on trying to make sure they win the vote in states that carry a lot of delegates. The more of a population you have, the more delegates you have. So states like California, or Texas, or even New Jersey have a lot more delegates for their party than, say, a Wyoming or Montana. So, in the end, members of the same party campaign against, run against, debate against one another. People who used to be friends are become enemies in the political battlefield, trying to become the last one standing of their party who will receive the nomination for the general election. Let's take a look at some pictures to show this. Here we see, on your right, President Barack Obama when he was Senator Barack Obama. He is sitting next to former First Lady, at that time, Senator Hillary Clinton, who was also a former First Lady and a future Secretary of State. Now, you can see that they're in the middle of a debate. They're arguing. They don't look like they're getting along. They're both Democrats. Both of them in 2008 wanted to be the nominee for the Democratic Party for the presidency. After a long, exhaustive primary battle, in the end, Barack Obama won more delegates than Hillary Clinton and secured the nomination for president. And once that happened, the people who were friends, who then became enemies, were friends all over again. That's the way presidential campaigning works. Your friends become your enemies, and then once that election's over, they're friends again. Works for Republicans too. Here we see 2012 nominee Mitt Romney, when he was in the primaries, debating Rick Santorum, senator from Pennsylvania, and Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. You can see Mr. Gingrich, who is with the purple tie on your right, doesn't look very pleased on his expression. This was a very contentious debate between members of the same party. They're questioning each other's qualifications, so on and so forth. But once Romney secured the nomination, great friends. See, political primaries are sometimes very brutal. We'll see that sometimes candidates, in order to appeal to more members of their party, will take one stand, and once they win the nomination, their points of view on their issues will change as they try to become more appealing in a general election to get people from all parties and independents to vote for them. So, I'd like you to answer a question right now. Take a little break and answer a question. First, just review what are primary elections. Then I want you to think to yourself, and we'll discuss this in class, why do you think primary elections generally, for the most part, are limited to members of only one, missing an E there, one political party? Why are they limited to Democrats voting in the Democratic primary, Republicans voting in the Republican primary? Why are independents not allowed to vote? Why are members of the other parties not allowed to vote in most primary elections? There are a couple open ones, but why is that the exception to the rule? Or why is that the rule? Most primary elections limited to members of only one political party.